In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the front brake hose on this Ford F-350. It goes from your frame down to the caliper. Let's get started. With the truck safely raised and supported, let's remove the wheel. Some wheels may have a center cap like this one, others might not. If yours does, all you need is a little pry bar or screwdriver to pop it out. It should have a cutout, so just look around to find it and pry it right off. That'll expose all 8 21mm lug nuts. So with a 21mm socket, remove them all. Now remove the wheel and set it aside. Use a 15mm socket and remove the banjo bolt off of the caliper. Have a collection bucket underneath to catch fluid that may come out. Take those washers off and the hose. In my case, there actually isn't any fluid because the caliper is new already and it's not full yet, but you should have quite a bit of fluid coming out. Take the provided banjo bolt with one new copper washer, slide that on. Take your new hose and slide the banjo bolt with the copper washer right through. And then on the other side, put another copper washer on. This should sandwich the hose right in between the two, and then you can start this on the caliper. With it started, snug it up. The torque on this banjo bolt is 35 foot-pounds. That's nice and tight. What you're actually looking to do is squish these two copper washers, and that's what's going to create your tight seal and make sure no brake fluid will leak out. In order to allow the caliper to start bleeding as soon as we connect the hose up at the top, I'm going to remove the bleeder screw cap now and use a 10mm wrench to break this bleeder screw free. Just going to leave it like this with the collection bucket underneath. So like I said, as soon as we connect the hose at the top, this is going to start bleeding. Follow the brake hose, you'll see where it bolts on to the front of the axle with this 10mm headed bolt on this bracket. So remove it. Be very careful with these. A lot of times they rust into place and you can easily break them off. Before removing this bracket, I'm going to disconnect the vacuum line that goes to the locking hub. It's clipped on the back side as well with a little retainer. Just pop that off. There we go. Remove this brake hose. Bring in the new bracket and line it up. Start in the bolt and snug it up. Resecure this vacuum line, stick it through, and reconnect it at the front. Keep following this up and you'll see where the brake hose connects to the brake line. In my case, I'm going to use a 3/8 flare nut wrench, break this fitting free, and remove the line from the hose. Now, often these lines will not break free because the line gets rusted to the fitting. It's going to want to spin the line off, in which case you would want to start here so you can disconnect the hose from this bracket and spin the hose off the line instead of trying to twist the line. Otherwise, you risk breaking it and then you have to make yourself a new brake line. Once you've broken this free, you can just use a regular wrench. The flare nut wrench just helps you not strip out the fitting. At this point, brake fluid is dripping, so I have a collection bucket underneath catching all of this. There's a small clamp on the bottom that we have to remove so we can unlock the brake hose from this bracket. Sometimes you can grab it with pliers, but other times you have to just tap it with a pry bar or chisel and a hammer. After spraying it down with some rust penetrant, I'm able to lock some locking pliers onto this, wiggle it, and pull it off. As you can see, this was quite rusted in here, so usually it's a lot easier to take these off. I also had to end up capping this line because I was losing a whole lot of brake fluid. So now this hose should come right out of the bracket. Sometimes it needs some help. And there it is. Now take your new brake hose. I put a little bit of grease on where the hose goes right through this bracket just so I can prevent rust from building up in the future. Hold it on there and lock it in with the clip. All right, that's locked in. I'm going to take off my little cap that I put on the line and start the line into the brake hose. This can be a little bit tricky because if the fitting isn't perfectly level and in line with the threads, it will not start. Also, make sure you're not cross-threading these. That just bottomed out, so I'm going to switch over to my line wrench so I can snug it down without stripping out the fitting. Just give it about an 1/8 to 1/4 turn at most. That's going to squish that flare in there and make sure that it is nice and tight and sealed up. I'm going to spray this down with some brake parts cleaner to remove all the brake fluid that dripped. This will make it so that if I have a leak here, I can easily spot it. Now let's wait for our gravity bleed to be done. Basically, gravity will pull fluid through the line into the caliper and push any air out of the bleeder screw. Since the process has already started, it shouldn't take too much longer. That's why I wanted to open up the bleeder screw ahead of time. This should get most, if not all, of the air out of this system. But if you need to bleed the brakes further because you think there's air stuck in there, you'll see exactly how to do a full manual brake bleed at the end of the video. For now, let's just wait for this to be done. All right, there's our trickle of clean, fresh brake fluid with no air bubbles. So let's close this off. Snug it. You don't have to make this very tight. It's very small and you don't want to strip it out or break it. Clean this with some brake parts cleaner to get any of the brake fluid off that dripped all along the caliper. And cap this off with a little boot. Let's get the wheel on. Install all 8 lug nuts. We'll bottom them out in a cross pattern to seat the wheel evenly. And then also in a cross pattern, we'll torque them to 165 foot-pounds. Once again, 165 foot-pounds in a cross pattern. Here we go. Double check them if you want. I'm sure that mine are tight. So now, because I had this cover, I'm going to put this back on, line it up, if yours had it, with the lug nuts, and then tap it on. Don't forget to top off the master cylinder, pump up the brake pedal, and take it for a road test. On the driver's side of your engine bay, you'll find your brake master cylinder. Looking closer, I'm going to use a rag and just wipe off all the debris that's around here since it has some sand and buildup. I don't want any of it getting into the master cylinder, contaminating my fluid. Once you have it wiped off, remove the cap, and if you read it, it'll say that you need .3 brake fluid to fill this system. Now, typically I would remove all of the old brake fluid that's in the master cylinder. However, I know for sure that in my case, I just put fresh fluid in this master cylinder, so I'm not going to be removing it. However, if you didn't just put brake fluid in it, I highly recommend removing it with a vacuum pump with a little reservoir on it, or a fluid transfer pump. Once you've removed most of your fluid, top it off with fresh .3 brake fluid all the way to the max line. We are now ready to start the bleeding process. The sequence on this truck is going to be starting at the right rear wheel. That's the passenger side rear. Then you move over to the left rear, driver's side rear that is. Then you want to top off the master cylinder so it doesn't go too low on fluid. Then you move over to the right front and bleed that caliper. And then lastly, the left front, which is the driver's side front caliper. After that, you top it off again. And if you feel that you need to bleed more, repeat the same procedure in the same sequence until you're satisfied with the feel of the brake pedal, not forgetting to top it off every other caliper. We are now at the right rear caliper and we're going to put a 3/8 wrench on the bleeder screw. Have a collection bucket underneath ready to catch the fluid. I actually have this hose attached to a little bottle that's going to do that for me. And of course an assistant in the vehicle ready to pump up that brake pedal so we can actually create pressure and bleed the system. I'm going to set this up and you can go ahead and pump. All right, they're holding pressure, so with pressure being held, I'm going to open the bleeder screw. Okay, pedal hit the floor, so I'm going to close it off. Go ahead and pump again. All right. Go ahead and pump one more time. This is nice clean brake fluid. You want to do this until you see clean brake fluid and of course no air bubbles coming out of the bleeder screw. All right. Perfect. I'm going to remove my hose. This was a perfect bleed. You can let go of the brake pedal now. We have clean fluid and no air bubbles. So I'm going to wipe this off, spray some brake parts cleaner if needed. And of course, if you have the little cap that goes on the bleeder screw, go ahead and put that on. Now we're going to repeat the process on the left rear caliper, do the exact same thing, and then top off the master cylinder and move to the front. We are now at the right front caliper. Master cylinder is topped off again, ready to go. I'm going to take the little cap off the bleeder screw, get my hose attachment and my 3/8 wrench ready, and you can go ahead and pump up the brakes now. Holding. All right, holding pressure. So open this up. Floor. Okay, hit the floor, close it. All right, go ahead and pump again. Holding. Okay. Floor. All right, I got some air in this one, so go ahead and pump again. Once again, you want to bleed until you have no air coming out. Holding. Okay. Floor. All right. Go ahead and pump again. This is looking better. Holding. Floor. Perfect. You can let go of the brake pedal now. No air in this one. The air that was visible in the hose was actually just from a bad seal right around the end of it. So I'm going to clean all this off. Use some brake parts cleaner if needed to rinse off the brake fluid. Once it has all dried up, cap off the bleeder screw and repeat the process on the left front caliper. Now that we're done bleeding, let's top off the master cylinder one last time to make sure it's full. Put the wheels back on and torque them to 165 foot-pounds, and there you have it. Job is done.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.